Hello. So for this video today, this is going to be a pretty in-depth guide of the player's point of view, what a player can do on their turn, and how they can kind of move and interact with their character. I will be honest, this is kind of a shameless plug to try and show my personal players the benefits of Foundry and why I truly like the program and why I would eventually like to move to it in the future. But I do believe it will help a lot of people and other DMs that might want to eventually show, hey, this is kind of what you can do on Foundry, just to show how convenient certain things are and how, streamlined you could make the game and make it as, pretty much enjoyable as possible. I currently play on Fantasy Grounds, which I've been doing for pretty much all of this year. It's good. I don't mind it, but after playing with Foundry for the last about 2 months or so, I truly like it more, and I would eventually love for my players to migrate to that. But this is the player's perspective. You'll notice by the lack of icons on the left side to limit what you can actually control. So on the top left-hand corner for the player, just the basic controls, you have three things that you can do. You have just a select, which is just a just a regular select box that allows you to do various things. You have a target icon that allows you to click and target enemies or yourself. You can also alternately hold Alt and do the same thing, which even when you hold Alt because of one of the modules I have loaded, it will, if you were in select mode and you were doing like that, if you hold Alt, you'll notice that it automatically defaults down to hold the the target mode. Also, you have a measured template, or not a measured template. You have a like a distance ruler um, that will, when you hold control, you can show how far something might be. So like say if you're like, okay, how far is that one enemy? You could say, okay, so if I look over here, they are 20 feet away, and or you can be like, okay, there's an enemy that's okay, they're 30 feet away from where I'm currently at. And you can also, if you're holding control when you're drawing out your design, so like say if you're like this is a Gloomstalker Ranger. If she wants to move 40 feet on her first turn, you can map out drawing it, and then if you hit the space bar, it'll actually move the exact path that you made, which is kind of cool. Also, there is a measured template category. So if, say, you're casting a spell or you're saying, okay, so in a 10-foot radius or 15-foot radius, in front of me, you can draw it out. The drawing color will match your configuration to whatever your color design is. So um, whenever you do that, whenever you draw templates, it'll match whatever color that it is that you make. So if you need to customize and make multiple colors for whatever reason, you're saying, hey, I'm going to cast a light spell and do something like that. Also, same thing for a cone and for a cube and a line does the same thing. Uh, and to delete them, you have to be in the measured template category, and then you can just click delete or right click and or just click the delete button. Also, there's a journals tab. So depending on the DM and what they have actual info available to the players, they can create a journal entry and could make it visible for a player to see. I don't currently have any on this test map, but you would literally just click this button that lights up. It's got like a little purple icon, and then that'll toggle it to be displayed. So if there's any journal entries on the board and the player has access to them, they'll be able to see them once that's enabled. But that's pretty much it on those kind of controls. So the right hand window, the main menu here, the way I have it personally set up is I have a module on that's called Combat Focus that puts the combat tracker and actually merges it with the chat window. Big pet peeve is you can't move the chat window anywhere else. It's always defaults to the right side, and you can't minimize it or pop it out like how you can certain other sections. So the actors display, items in inventory, the journal, the rollable tables, all that stuff can all be popped out and made smaller, and you can you can break them down, and you just kind of double click on the item name, and you can move them accordingly. If you wanted to, you know, if you actually have a rollable table that you access constantly, um, then you can, you know, build that however you need to. Like, I don't have any of these set up right now, but I mean, if there's like, if you have the wild magic table and that's built, then you can click on it and have access to it, and makes it a little bit easier. But for the most part, you're never really going to need to access any of this stuff unless there's something very specific. If I create journal entries or I have the quest log, then I'll have that at the bottom, and it'll be down here for you to be able to access. But for the most part, you're almost never going to really go into these. They do have a compendium in this one, which is this little book looking icon that has, you know, all of the compendiums that you can look at. They'll have, you know, like the spells compendium, and it has spells that you can go in, you can read any of the text and get any info. And or anytime that you learn a new spell as you level up, you can, you know, move it in and add it to your character sheet. So you're like, okay, I'm going to learn Arcane Hand, and it'll add it to your spell list. And then a spell that's prepared will have this little lit up book icon, and that means it's prepared, and you'll notice it here in a minute when you have everything. And then it'll also list how many spell slots just above your page right here. So there's 3 of 3, and of course it doesn't have a 5th level spell slot, so that doesn't work. And I have it set up so it won't just delete things on accident. You have to literally click delete enable to be able to remove that. Also in this one, in the settings tab, there are some modules that you can actually see which ones are currently active. As a player, you can turn any modules that you want off if you don't want them for whatever reason. The majority of them I have set up to make your lives easier, but there are some that you might want to turn off for whatever reason, but I don't see any of them that you would want to turn off, you know, that I could think of. I know there's one that this alternates a dark mode, so your character sheet looks dark like this, but if you, which I didn't save it, so that's why I didn't update, it'll make it light if you like the lighter view of it. I'm personally a big fan of the dark mode. I think it's just a little easier on the eyes. And but other than that, the only tab that I think you'll ever really need open is when you have this expanded, will be the combat tracker, which is this fist-looking icon. When you're in combat, this top little area will show all the characters that are involved in combat. It'll show their initiative rolls on this side, and then this whole bottom section is nothing but just the chat window and all of the chat dialogue and text, and it's all conveniently right there. And then when you're not in combat, you can literally minimize it and save yourself as much real estate as possible. Like, I know at least 2 of my players play on laptops, so they have limited space anyways, so anything that's going to give them as much screen space as possible is going to be beneficial. There's also the bottom down here, which is the macro bar. So anytime you have something that you know you're going to use constantly, you can create a macro for it, as simple as dragging it down here on the bottom. Also, any spells that you might use constantly. So for Nathir, she might use Cure Wounds all the time, and she might use Ensnaring Strike. So you can create a macro at the bottom. So whenever you click on them or type the number, so for number 1, 2, or whatever. So say if she's going to target herself and cast Cure Wounds, and it'll ask, do you want to consume a spell slot? It's going to show it's a first level spell slot. If you want to cast it at a higher level, and say you want to cast it at a level 2 spell slot, you can cast it at level 2, and when you have the text window open, or the combat one, which is that, and you roll the spell, it will ask you what kind of roll. It'll show it'll be 1d8 plus any mods and any bonuses that you potentially get. And when you roll, it'll automatically roll your dice, and it'll show you what your roll is and anything that you're going to get with that. And it'll automatically apply any. So if you're hurt at all, it will apply that damage. So when you're injured, this window will gradually become red, and we'll do the Cure Wounds again, so you can see how it heals. So, and then just a normal roll, did 2. She had 38, now she jumped up to 40. So, but when you're at full health, it'll have this nice full window. And she's also used 2 of her spell slots, in which it'll update here. So now she has 2 of 4. So we'll put that back at 4. Okay. So now we're going to just go really in depth on the actual character sheet itself to kind of go over everything. So on the front page is your attributes. So I have it set up that some of the main things that she might use constantly are saved on here on the right in this one little section here. Any item that can be added to this area will have on whatever category it's in. So the inventory, features, spellbook. Well, spellbook doesn't count, but well, actually it does. I take that back. So the inventory and like that. So it has this little bookmark looking tab, and when you click it, it'll add it to the favorites. So anything that's added to that will show up in this little page right here. So you can put everything on the player sheet on the front page on attributes if you didn't want to have to keep going back and forth between different menus. But we also have another module that we're going to show that goes over that as well, just to kind of simplify everything. But whenever you're on this page and you have to do any kind of roll or anything, if you don't want to roll it the way that I have set up, you can access it from the player sheet. So say if you needed, I say, to make a strength check, you click on strength, it'll ask you to make an ability check or a saving throw. And when you have the chat window pulled up, it will show whatever your check is. So if you say it's a saving throw, which those are two really great throws for Nath. So same thing with dexterity, check or save, it'll ask you to do there. Same thing for any kind of actual skills. So if I say to make, an intimidation check, it'll do the same thing. It'll, you click it and it'll roll. Down here are your senses, so your main common things. So she has 150 dark vision. She's a drow, plus she's a gloomstalker, so she gets an additional 30. It'll show any of your languages that you speak, any damage resistance or immunities you may have, any vulnerabilities if you're specifically weak to something, or if you're immune to something specific, like if you were immune to being poisoned, you could add that as well. It'll also show you whatever your weapon proficiencies are, what armor proficiencies, and any tool proficiencies that you have. Also, any primary resources that you might use constantly. So for this one, she's a level 5 ranger and level 2 cleric, so she only has one use of channel divinity right now. So whenever she activates channel divinity, it'll reduce it from this category. So in your inventory, I have this set up so she has a bag of holding, so she has very limited weight that goes against her. So at the bottom down here will actually show a weight total. So she can hold up to 120 pounds. She's currently only has 48, and that's actually being mainly held by her currency. The way I have this currently set up, so I am using a module called Inventory Plus. With this, you can actually create and add custom categories to simplify things. So I created a category called Bag of Holding that I pretty much have everything stashed in, and it's got a little drop down tab that you can see everything that's in the box or in that category. So right here there's a little edit button. When you click this, it'll actually say to ignore the weight, which everything inside a Bag of Holding does not have a weight. Or if you have something that has a very specific weight category, it can only hold, like if you had a pack that could only hold 20 pounds, you could set it to have a max weight of 20 pounds, which once it hits 20 pounds, it will not be able to put anything else in there because it's considered at max capacity. I'm also going to, especially with Nath, she does a lot of harvesting, so I'm going to create some other subcategories and containers and have that inside the Bag of Holding, so that way she's basically going to have, it's going to be kind of like additional compartments inside the Bag of Holding, so she can keep all the stuff that she harvests and gathers. Same thing with tools. I have it just kind of separated, even though I have it with no weight. I have it as just kind of just below the Bag of Holding that has it. So she basically, this is her tools category where she can go into her Bag of Holding and, okay, this is where I keep my tools at. Also, whenever something is equipped that has any kind of effect to it, so this glamored armor or glamored studded armor will automatically adjust her AC accordingly based on when it's equipped or not. So like right now it shows her AC is 17, but when she takes it off, lose my mind here. Do I have the effect on? So it didn't take the effect off. There we go. So once it removes the effect and you take the armor off, then it'll adjust the AC. So let me turn it back on. So same thing, whenever your weapons are equipped, it'll show up in the inventory tab here, which we'll look at here in a little bit. Same thing with like her Cloak of Elvenkind. So whenever she has it applied and equipped, then she'll get the benefit of it, of being able to, perception checks that would target her to be seen would roll at disadvantage, and whenever she rolls a stealth check, she gets advantage. So for the features, this goes over all of your features for your current class and your abilities that you have. So it will break down all of the things that you have that you would see, your hit dice, what your proficiencies are, all the different abilities that you get as you level up. So these are just the primary cleric ones, and then the ones for the domain that it's in. We'll have those down there, and then the domain spells that she has specific for her. I preload and make sure that all of your abilities and everything are set up, and I adjust any abilities accordingly to make sure that they're as easy as possible so you don't have to do anything. That's just pre-work that I do in the background. Also for like spell casting, she has her innate spell casting that she gets for being a drow. She gets the Fairy Fire and Darkness, so she can cast once per day. The Dancing Lights cantrip that she gets at all times for being a drow. Any of the cantrips that she gets for being the Illustrated Moonfire is a special one for her subclass, and then her 3 cantrips she gets, the mixture of ranger spells with the cleric spells, and then the remaining spells. You can also separate the categories, so like you can filter, so like anything that would cost a bonus action, you can toggle it and it will literally only show you spells that activate as a bonus action. Any reaction spells if you had any spells that are considered concentration spells, any spells that are considered rituals, and then you can have a section that's just all prepared. And so then you also have your effects tab. This is that grants any kind of effect that you have that's during your turn that might give you some sort of benefit. So for like the battle dance, this is a one that she gets is basically her fighting style, which adds 1 to her AC and gives her extra +1 to her damage rolls. The way I have it coded, automatically it does that. This Illustrates Dance is a special one for her. This is her Channel Divinity ability. The Dread Ambusher is the one, I don't know why that's listed as 4 rounds. That should only list as 1 round. I'll have to fix that. Oh, that's why, because it shows like that. So it shows to start round 1, so fix that. That shouldn't even be at all. Anyways. Okay. So, and this will have the effect of it increases her move by 10, and then whenever she gets that extra attack, if she gets a hit, then she gets that 1d8, and I'll show you how that gets applied in actual combat here in a minute. Same thing with War Dancer. This is a one specific to her cleric class that allows her to add 3 to her AC, which is her charisma modifier that she can use as a reaction whenever someone hits her with a ranged or spell attack, or with a ranged or melee attack. She can use her reaction to activate War Dancer, which may potentially allow her to dodge a skill or an attack that comes at her. Your Biography tab, which is pretty straightforward, goes over any traits and everything that you have, and then any detailed background that you want to fill out. Journal, this is specific things if you wanted to have, a person of interest. So, you might have a quest that it's like, I met Johnson, who is, my mortal enemy, and you can go real in depth and stuff, and you can kind of customize things. Locations of interest, you might be like, I really would like to go visit Waterdeep at some point because I hear there's a lot of fun things that happen there. Specific quests, which when I have my quest module activated, that wouldn't really be as important, and miscellaneous can be just random things. And then you could write your own personal journal if you wanted to. If you wanted to do like, quest log, day 2 of adventure, blah blah blah, went out and found bears and fought said bears. Also on this page in here, we'll show you your hit dice, or your hit points, sorry, your hit dice and how many that you have, your armor class, your movement speed, and your initiative and your proficiency bonuses up here. It does have an experience tracker that will automatically adjust whenever you kill something. My favorites tab are ones that say I feel like I might use all the time I have on here, so that way I can easily access them at any time. You can also roll from here, so if you wanted to roll from that, I don't have anything targeted, of course, but we'll target something. And then, but you can roll from your character sheet just as easy if you rolled from the quick menu here or from the macros. You can do everything from the character sheet just the same as you can do anything on the setup, which I'm going to go over here in just a second. And so for some other specific things, so if you're using a class that may suffer from exhaustion, you can adjust that here, which it'll kind of show a little icon to show, you know, what level of exhaustion you're in, and, you know, as you get more and more, you know, bad things happen, don't get to 6. So for rest, this one's pretty cool. So whenever you take a rest, if you take a short rest, it will have a little pop-up window that'll ask you what dice you want to roll and show you how many that you have available. Say if you have, which we'll actually adjust something else too, so we'll make this 0. So her channel divinity comes back on a short or long rest, so we'll demonstrate, you know, how things that can get restored. So when she takes a short rest, say she has, I'm going to use my D8 dice first. She rolls, just rolls normal. She got, you know, a +10 to actually add it to her health. This also benefits, say, if you have a bard in your party and they're going to do, you know, Song of Healing, you might say, okay, I'm going to get an additional 1d4 from the Song of Healing, which you can adjust and add right there, and it'll roll the 1d8 plus any mods, and then the 1d4, and then she jumped back up to full health. And then once you've rolled all your dice and are comfortable with your health, then you can select rest. It'll say that you took, you know, a short rest of 1 hour, and it recovered any channel divinity that she had already used because she gets it back on a short rest. Also, if I ever say you get inspiration, you can check that, and then, you know, it'll kind of pulsate to kind of show that you're, you know, inspired. And it'll also update if you have any hit dice that are missing. It'll show that you have some that are missing. And then whenever you take a long rest, it'll automatically default check and tell you on a long rest it will cover hit points, half your maximum hit dice, any class resources, and limited to item changes in any spell slots. And it'll ask you to do that, and then it'll regenerate, you know, start of a new day, recovered the 2 hit dice, and that. So that's pretty much it on the character sheet. It's very straightforward. Everything's laid out for you very cleanly. It's very well put together. I really like the way it looks. So now on the character page, or just on the you know, you're on a map and you're moving around, and if you don't want to click into your character sheet every time, I added a module called the Tokens Heads Up Display that is up here at the top. That is very convenient. So anything in your inventory will show up that's equipped that you're actually readily going to use is going to show up here. So any consumables that you may potentially use, any armor that you have equipped, any weapons that you have equipped will show up in this category of inventory. And whenever you click on them, it will, you know, it will activate or do anything that you need. Same thing with spells. So it lists her 2 innate spell casting abilities, has all of her cantrips. As long as they are prepared, they will show up in this list. If they are not prepared, they will not show up in this list. So that is a big thing. So like an example. So silence right here. We'll unprepare silence so you can see the updating of it being removed from the list. So now it only shows Restoration and Rip Trick. So if you do not have something prepared, it will not show up in that list. So effects, once I updated this token heads up display module, it allowed me to see the effects with this newest version of Foundry. This makes it very, very easy to apply and remove effects based on, you know, whatever skills you have to make it really effective and quick. So prime example would be for Nath. So at the start of combat, so I'll go to the combat tracker and I will put these 2 characters in the combat tracker, which I can't do it from her end. Sorry, let me do it from my, I got my laptop running for my actual GM side, and I have my player character on my computer. So both of these characters have now been added to the combat tracker. From the combat tracker, I will roll initiative for my enemy. So he rolled his, he got a 10. So Nath would roll her initiative there, and so she got a 12. So when she is in combat, and for her being a Gloomstalker, she has an ability called the Dread Ambusher, which allows her to move an additional 10 feet on her first turn of combat, and she also will get one extra attack that she can use, and if she gets a hit, she gets to roll an additional 1d8 damage of whatever type it is that she rolled. So for her, if she's going to move up, and she would go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and say she wants to attack Asgriel here, so she would target him for an attack. She would attack with her rapier. She got a hit on the first attack, which let me actually, before I do that, because I'm about to attack two people. So she attacks. She missed the first attack, got a hit on the second attack, and now she wants to roll for her third attack, which would be the Dread Ambusher. She could go to her effects tab, click Dread Ambusher, it'll apply the effect. You'll notice it on the combat tracker. It'll update on my side as well, so I can see it. So whenever an effect's applied, especially if it's a temporary effect, it'll pop up as like a little mini icon here. And so when she rolls and does her attack, which we'll do it till we get in the hit so you can see the change in damage. So for the last attack that she did when she was attacking with just her normal rapier, she got 1d8 plus 3 plus 1 plus 1. So you'll notice here that it added the 1d8, the mod, the plus 1 plus 1, plus an additional 1d8 in any bonuses that may apply. So with this one, she got an 8 on the first d8, and she got a 6 on the second d8, and then she got her proficiency bonus, plus 1 damage for her Blade Dancer feature. I want to say that's what it's called, like the Blade Dancer, or the Battle Dance, and then she is using a plus 1 weapon, so that accommodates for all the damage. And once she's done with that effect, she can click Dread Ambusher, it turns it off, she's done, she doesn't have to worry about using that feature again, or that skill again for the remainder of combat. It's only for that first turn, and it's done, and you don't have to worry about it, and then she can just attack and roll like normal after that. So other than that, so let's say and you'll notice I have it set up so you'll actually see, a health bar, go up and down whenever they take damage. Say now he's going to attack her on his side, so when he attacks her and he rolls his attack and, he gets a hit, she can say, okay, I have an AC currently of 17. If I want to use my War Dancer passive, or my War Dancer ability to use my reaction to add 3 to my AC, it might potentially allow me to dodge the hit. She activates that. Her AC is now 20. The hit that he did would now no longer hit, and so I would cancel, and then he could try attacking again, and if he got a 28, so that's definitely going to hit no matter what. So then he would just roll his damage as normal, and it'll apply the damage to her once I click OK. So, and also too on my end, say if you do something that, and then on the bottom when you right-click your character, you'll also see your health total update. If you don't want to go into your character sheet, you can see it there, but you'll also see it at the bottom. It'll say 38 because she has 44, so then she took 7 damage. So, and then you would just deactivate the War Dancer feature the same way you would if that you would turn the Dread Ambusher off as well. So for her as well, so for her Channel Divinity, which is under her active features, if she wanted to use her Channel Divinity, she would activate that. Hers is specific that she does a performance check, and after her performance check determines what kind of stats she gets based on it. So she rolled an 11, which with that is actually not very good. She doesn't get any kind of benefit if she rolled an 11, so we'll roll a little bit higher and see if we get, okay, so 18. So with an 18, she would come to her passives, and she would click on this one that she got a 16 to 18. So with this one, it actually affects her AC, so it raises her AC plus 2, and I have it based off, and she gets plus 2 to her AC, and she gets plus 1 to charisma saving throws, and she can only use this as long as she's not using heavy armor, and she's not wearing a shield, and she has to be always wearing a sword, and has to use this as a bonus action. And that would apply that effect. This only lasts for 3 rounds. After the 3 rounds, then she would turn it off, and then I didn't even begin combat on the combat tracker. So on my side, I would click begin combat, and it'll show the current order. So Nath would do something on her turn, she would end, then the whoever else in the combat chapter would do theirs. You'll notice that it shows round 1. As soon as that person's done, it moves on to round 2, so on and so forth. I also use a module a lot of the time that actually puts like a big circle around whoever's the starting target. I didn't want to do it on this one just because it's just kind of distracting. But whenever I do that, have it active, it allows you to be able to see what's going on and know you can't miss who's the character and who's actually, you know, being looked at. You also notice too that when I untargeted her character, when her character had like a little orange circle just above it, that means that she's being targeted. So on her character sheet, she won't know, that she's being targeted, and she sees that dot. She says, okay, so someone's targeting me, depending on whatever the enemy is, and it'll show up there. So in addition to that, so on when you're not in combat and you're not doing anything and you're just kind of running around, I just did like a test one as just a setup, just to show. I've done numerous videos in the past about setting up teleportation sites, being able to take you from map to map or area to area. So for this one, I might have something, as audacious as say go here, or I might have a building that'll have like a map icon that you can click on that you can take you into a shop or something. So for this one, I literally have it to set up to just go here, and it will literally move her to wherever I have the endpoint is. So over here, it kind of floated her over to where she needed to be at. That's the animate effect. I can set it up so it just instantly teleports, but the animates sometimes is kind of cool, just because it's you just kind of watch your character kind of slowly kind of teleport to the other side. So I think that's kind of cool. Also too is just another little description or sorry, demonstration. I had say you're in a room and you're exploring, and you do an investigation check, and you notice, oh hey, there's a treasure chest in this room. And so on my side, I can hide things beforehand and reveal them, so whenever you investigate and you say, oh cool, there's a treasure chest, and then you can go up to the treasure chest and you can interact with it, and when you click on it, you'll see whatever's in the treasure chest. If there are numerous players involved in the game, so if you have 2 people in the group or 4 people in the group, you can actually split whatever's in the treasure chest in multiple ways. So there's currently 100 gold and 2 items in the treasure chest. If I wanted to split it 2 ways, it'll have an option to split, but because I'm using it just her, it can only be split 1 way, so she's going to take all the gold for herself. Also, there's an option that if you just want to take every single thing in the box, you could take everything here. If you say you just wanted something very specific, you could click to loot that one specific item. So like you're like, I really need to be able to count, so I need an abacus. So you would take the abacus, and you'll notice in the chat window, it will actually update and say that you looted an abacus from the chest, or you looted the armor from the chest. And then if you say take gold, you're going to take the gold pieces as well. Which she had 1,000 and some change, now she's got 1,100. So, and she now also has a adamantium chain shirt, and she'll have an abacus, which I think is considered loot. Yeah, and there's the abacus. And then she could, sort them into her character sheet accordingly. But that's another thing that allows you to be able to interact with things. I guess I can create just a tiny little room real quick, just so you can see with interacting with doors. So we'll make a tiny little box real quick. And let's do one last wall. And we'll put a door in here. Okay. And door. Alright. So, you'll see a tiny little door right there that I added to this little room that I made. So, there are walls that prevent her from being able to walk into it. I can't move down these at all. It won't let me. If you try to like drag your character through a wall, it'll tell you can't, because there's at least one wall there. When you walk up to it and you click on that, it will put you in like a little room that I just made, just quickly. Also with, say, checks and skills. So like, let's say I ask, I want you to give me a deception check. You're trying to deceive somebody. You know, you're trying to sneak in there, and it's like, hey, I'm just, you know, you're just everyday merchant. I'm just trying to walk in and go get and sell me some goods. So I'm like, okay, make a deception check. So it will ask you to make a deception check, and it'll do that. So if I ask you to make, say, like a strength save or intelligence save, so like go ahead and make a strength save, um, it'll have that option up here. If I say I want you to give me, you know, a constitution check, it'll roll it. I sometimes will have it set up so it doesn't automatically roll the abilities. Right now, as soon as I clicked that, I saw that it was set to, it automatically rolled, which I'll have to go back and customize the settings. I typically allow y'all to be able to roll because I think it's fun for y'all to actually get to roll. But just for this one, I forgot that I had that preset up to automatically do it. But normally it rolls same thing when you get an attack and ask you to you know, when you get a hit or something, it'll ask you to do a roll. It'll pop up like that, or it'll pop up like on the character sheet where, you know, it'll ask you to do a check or something, and it'll, you know, it'll pop up accordingly. But I'm trying to see if there's anything else. Same thing, like you can activate the short rest and long rest, same thing that you do on the character sheet. If you don't want to have to go all the way into the character sheet to do it, you can do the same thing. If I say, hey, you get inspiration, you get inspiration. Or if you, you know, it won't, once you're in initiative and you're in, you know, the combat state, it won't let you end it until I end combat. So, but once I end combat, it will take you out of the it'll take you out of the combat tracker, and then you know, it won't let you roll initiative because there's no combat actively being in the scene, and it won't let you enter the combat state because I have to be the one to actually put you in it. But, and then it's just really convenient for certain things. So like, say you're wanting to verbalize actually using a ration, you know, you can verbalize using a ration and kind of actually use the items that you don't normally get to use or that you don't normally think about using. And it just creates a bunch of cool effects. I don't have any sound ambiance set up on this video for this specifically because I just wanted to just demonstrate just how to set up the character sheet and, you know, how simplified everything is. And I mean, there's sometimes that you might not even have to access this depending on what you're doing on each turn, because there's sometimes, especially if you've set up any macros, which you don't have to, you just say, you know what, I'm just going to use my longsword, and you would roll your hit. I literally am just clicking 1 on the keyboard, and that's it, and done. So on my turn, I literally could just click 1, done, next turn, and would never have to click on anything else besides just literally clicking the keyboard. So it's really convenient for certain things, especially if you don't want to have to, you know, open up your character sheet and go into that. I really like the heads-up display because it does make everything pretty streamlined right then and there. And, you know, once you're done, you know, it's you know, off the screen, and, you know, you can move around accordingly and do whatever you need. And, you know, you can toggle it to always be up, or you can have it, you know, only up when you want it. You know, you can customize a bunch of stuff on your side to, you know, only show it or only to enable it if it's hovering over it. You can have it so that it'll only open up the categories if you click on them. So say if you only wanted it to, you know, when you're hovering over it, it won't click them, but you're like, all right, I want to click on spells, then it'll open them up, and then you just unclick it if you wanted it to open or close. And, you know, it could be situated that way. So especially if you're only ever really in your inventory, you could just leave your inventory tab open all the time, or you can close it and turn it on and off. But that's just about it. Just a solid demonstration of what a character can do on your side. You know, being able to access your effects really well, being able to see all your features and stuff that you can have. Anything like this, like you can right click on it and it can pull up the text, so that way you don't have to go into your character sheet if you don't want to, just to kind of show you, you know, what you can do. Same thing for spells. Like if you can't remember what a spell is, you can just have it and you can right click on the spell and it'll pull up and tell you exactly what it does. just makes it really convenient. You don't have to go in and out of stuff a whole bunch. You literally can just have everything right at your fingertips, and makes it super easy to stay and not have to like interrupt combat sometimes, or you're like, oh hey, I can't remember how to do this, or oh, I can't remember what this does here. Let me try and find it. I mean, it's super convenient. I mean, being able just to right click and be like, okay, I can't remember exactly how I've used this in a long time. Okay, and then you can read it, and you know, pretty much everything that I have, I've pretty much preset up to code to do whatever I need it to do. Um, so I mean, I'm really big fan of Foundry. Um, it's been pretty fun to play around with, um, and so you know, anytime you have certain things like the Sacred Flame is a dexterity saving throw. He failed it, so he took 11 damage. Um, and or sorry, if he saves then, but he failed, so he would take 11 damage. And you know, I mean, I really like it. I hopefully eventually move to it in the future. I think there's just a lot of really cool fun things that you can do on it. Um, I think for some people, especially with like laptop users, it'll be really convenient. And you know, it runs on Chrome, Firefox, Microsoft Edge, runs on all internet browsers. I think Chrome, runs it a little bit better than some other things. So, but I think that's gonna about do it for this video. If you have any questions over specific things, just let me know and just leave me a message in the comments. And in the meantime, y'all have a good one, and have a good day.